a nuclear power. You look at the list of things that he has done, and yet here's the single most dangerous thing that he has done. The president and his apprentice-in-chief, they're trying to change the idea of America. They're trying to change the very meaning of the American dream. Now, I said this half jokingly, but I mean it. Give Bernie Sanders credit. At least he's honest enough to call himself a socialist. President Obama and Hillary Clinton, they're no better. They just won't admit it. But every time you hear this president speak, when you look at his policies, it's all about dividing us. By gender, by race, by background, by class, by geography. And it's all about government spending and dependence and redistribution, more taxing, more spending, more regulating. I don't know about you, but that is not the American dream. That is not the American dream your parents taught you or the American dream my parents taught me. An America where the circumstances of your birth don't determine your outcomes as an adult. An America where you don't have to be born to wealthy parents or the right zip code. If you're willing to work hard and get an education, you should be able to do even better than your parents. And I want to share with you a little bit about my background, about how my family has lived the American dream. Then I want to talk about what we must do to reclaim the American dream. And then after I'm done talking, I look forward to taking your questions. And then even after that, I'm going to stick around and visit, so if you want to ask your question one-on-one, or if you want to take a picture, if you have something else you want to talk about, I'll stick around as long as people want to learn. But let me start with my parents. The reason I'm so passionate about the American dream. You know, my parents, they have lived the American dream. My dad, he was one of 9 kids. Grew up in a home without electricity, without running water. Was the first and only one to get past the 5th grade. Now I know, because we've heard these stories every single day growing up. You know the type. You probably had a parent who told you they walked uphill, going to school, coming back from school as well. That was my dad. Yeah, see, he would have added the snow if he could have thought of it, but he didn't add the snow. But I'm sure if he had thought of it, there would have been 10 feet of snow as well. And here's an amazing thing. Over 40 years ago, the first time my parents ever got on a plane, they came halfway across the world to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I tell my kids there was no Google, they couldn't search online to see what it was like. They had never visited. They didn't even know somebody who had gone here and come back and could tell them what Louisiana was like. They were coming to an idea as much as they were coming to a place. They left their parents, their siblings. My mom was pregnant with me, and they got on that plane to come to the idea of freedom and opportunity. They were coming to the American dream. Now, by the way, they came legally when they came to this country. I know you're not supposed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Folks that want to come to our country, they should come legally. They should learn English. They should adopt our values. And when they get here, they should roll up their sleeves and get to work. You know, if people don't want to be Americans, they shouldn't come here. Nobody's forcing them to come. And they shouldn't use the freedoms we give to them to undermine the freedoms for everybody else. I'm tired of all the divisions. This president continues to divide us. He is the divider-in-chief. You know what? We're not. I'm tired of the hyphenated Americans. We're not African Americans or Asian Americans or rich Americans or poor Americans. We're all Americans, united as one. Proudly proclaim America was the great melting pot. We better not get away from it. You see what's happening in Europe. Second, third generation immigrants don't consider themselves parts of those societies and those cultures. Folks, again, I know you're not supposed to say this, I'll put a blood. Immigration without assimilation. That's not immigration. Immigration without assimilation is an invasion. We must not let that happen here in America. You know, going back to my parents, What's great is they land here. My mom goes to school at LSU. And I love what my dad does next. They don't know anybody. He wants a job. He came here to work. So he starts calling people out of the yellow pages. Starts calling company after company after company. I guess he finally wears down some guy from the railroad company. Doesn't know any better, so he tells my dad, you can start work Monday morning. Now I know, I say we've got some younger kids here. What my dad said next, you should never say in a job interview. This is like one of the 10 worst, you should write this down, never say this. This is like one of the 10 worst things you could say in a job interview. My dad tells his boss, hasn't even met him yet. Says, let's pray. He goes, I'll start Monday. He goes, now look, I don't have a car, I don't have a driver's license, so you're going to have to pick me up on the way to work Monday morning. I mean, who does that? But his boss was so taken by his enthusiasm to work, that's exactly what he did. Now, 6 months later, I was born at Women's Hospital in Baton Rouge. I was what you would politely call a pre-existing condition. Now, there was no Obamacare. All that meant was my parents' insurance didn't cover it. But I love what my dad did next. No government forms, no paperwork, no bureaucracy, no government programs, not even a contract. My dad just went to the hospital. He found that doctor, and he went to a man, and he said this. He said, I'm going to send you a check every month until I pay this bill in full. And he shook his hands, and that's exactly what he did. That's just how people did things back then. You know, I asked my dad about that. I said, how do you pay for a baby on layaway? I didn't think about that. I said, now if you skip a payment, can the hospital take the baby back? They repossess that baby? He says, you were such a bad little baby. He said, we would have skipped a payment if they would have taken you back. He said, but no, they didn't take you back. He goes, you are fully paid for. Nobody's coming to get you. Don't worry about it. The reason I tell you my parents' story. My parents came here to chase the American dream. They caught and lived the American dream. I want my children and one day my grandchildren. I want your children and your grandchildren. I want all of them to be able to live that same American dream. That's why this election is so important. This election is not about the Republican Party. It is about the United States. Now look, you're going to hear from a lot of candidates that will come and say a lot of great things. There are a lot of folks running for president. And they sound great. There are a lot of famous names running for president. But you know, we've had a great talker in the White House. First-term senator who'd never run anything. If being a great talker was good enough, we'd be on Easy Street. The reality is we need a doer, not a talker. We can't afford 4 more years of on-the-job training. So when people come and tell you, oh, I'm going to cut the budget. I'm going to fight to protect the unborn. I'm going to grow the private sector economy. I'm going to fight for unemployment. Sounds great. We're not just talking about those things in Louisiana. We have done those things. You heard from Jill, in our state, we've cut our budget 26%. We've got 30,000 fewer state bureaucrats than the day I took office. I don't think anybody's cut more than that anywhere, anytime when it comes to government spending. We've had 8 credit upgrades. We're a top 10 state for private sector job growth, reversing 25 years about migration. More people working, earning a higher income than ever before in our state's history. But it's not just fiscal policies. The largest tax cut in our state's history. We've not raised taxes the 8 years I've been governor. But it's not just that. We fought for statewide school choice, so the dollars follow the child instead of the child following the dollars. We passed laws to get rid of Common Core. We have sued Arnie Duncan to get Common Core out of all of our classrooms, saying this is a violation. We put our own Second Amendment in our state constitution, and we've been rated the most pro-life state 6 years in a row. I'm going to talk first for a minute about these barbaric videos that have come out from Planned Parenthood. Oh, look, I'm pro-life. But even if you're not yet pro-life, I would hope these videos would shock the conscience of the nation. We've got a bunch of science deniers on the left trying to defend Planned Parenthood. You hear them use every word but babies to describe what they're talking about. You know, when the first video came out, we ordered an investigation into Planned Parenthood, invited the FBI, and invited the state of Texas to join us. In Louisiana, they don't do any abortions, but they're trying to build an abortion clinic in New Orleans. We said, we're not issuing any permits. Instead, we're going to do our investigation. More videos came out. So a week ago, we kicked Planned Parenthood. We canceled their contract. We kicked them out of Medicaid to make sure they're not getting any taxpayer dollars in the state of Louisiana. Now, last week during the debate, I made some news because in the debate I was asked about Planned Parenthood. I said, Planned Parenthood better hope that Hillary Clinton wins this election. Because under President Jindal in January of 2017, I'm going to send the Department of Justice and the IRS to investigate Planned Parenthood. Well, the liberal media, some of the liberal media didn't like that. After the debate, I got surrounded by reporters and said, well, Governor, you didn't really mean that, did you? I mean, you can't really send the Department of Justice and the IRS. I know the IRS is busy investigating conservative groups. They'll have to make time in their busy day to actually go after Planned Parenthood. They said, you didn't really mean that. So let me clarify. Let me make it very, very clear what I said, what I mean. I absolutely did. When I'm president, I'm going to send the Department of Justice. I'm going to send the IRS. I will send OSHA. I will send the EPA. I'll send every government agency I can find and think of to investigate Planned Parenthood. They shouldn't be getting 1 penny of our taxpayer dollars because of these barbaric. They're not going to like that either. That's okay. We need a doer, not a talker. You're going to have candidates come here and tell you that they're going to repeal Obamacare, that they're going to shrink the federal budget. They're going to tell you that they're going to fight ISIS. But you know what? I remember when they promised us we gave them the Senate. They would stop amnesty and repeal Obamacare, and what has changed? That's right. We don't need any more talkers. We need a doer. I'm here to tell you, I've got the background. I've got the bandwidth. I've got the experience to get us through this. Now, why is it so important? It's not enough just to send any Republican to the White House. Let me give you another example of why I say that. A few weeks ago, I was very, very disappointed in the United States Supreme Court. In 1 week, they started their week by rewriting the law twice for the second time to try to save Obamacare. Scalia said words no longer have meaning anymore. They ended their week trying to change the definition of marriage, and Chief Justice Roberts said they just ignored the Constitution. So to recap, in 1 week, they couldn't be bothered to pick up a dictionary for the Constitution. That was the week I actually announced my campaign for president. I was actually here in Iowa when the second decision came out. A bunch of media caught up with me at the machine shed, and they said, Governor, what do you think about the Supreme Court's ruling on marriage? Now, you'll learn about me. If you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. You may or may not like the answer, but I'm going to answer it. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking. So they asked me, this was my first thought. I said, well, if the Supreme Court can't read the Constitution or the dictionary, maybe it's time to save a couple of bucks and just get rid of the Supreme Court. What's the point of having the Supreme Court? Hillary Clinton didn't like that answer. And I she criticized me and criticized that answer. So just for the sake of accommodation, let's say this. I'll be reasonable. If we want to get rid of the whole court, let's just downsize it by 2/3. Because there are 3 of those justices I wouldn't mind keeping. Let me be very clear about their rules. As a Christian, I don't believe any earthly court can change the definition of marriage as it was ordained by God. And I know the politically expedient thing to do is go balls. And I'm unlike President Obama and Secretary Clinton. I'm not evolving with the polls. I hope the federal government, I support efforts to restore our 10th Amendment rights and to continue to define marriage as being between a man and a woman. But folks, the left isn't content with taking away our 10th Amendment rights. Now they want our First Amendment rights. Now they're going after Christian businesses, individuals, and they're coming after the pastors and the churches next. In Louisiana, we passed a Religious Freedom Restoration Act my first term. My second term, I couldn't even get the legislature to consider American Conscience Act, so I signed an executive order in May, putting that into effect, saying that in the state of Louisiana, we will not discriminate against, sanction, penalize those businesses or individuals that have a traditional view of marriage, as being between a man and a woman. Well, the ACLU students, turns out they were for religious liberty before they were against religious liberty. You know, it turns out they used our Religious Freedom Restoration Act to defend the rights of other religious minorities in Louisiana. And I'm glad they did that. But then when it was Christian businesses and individuals facing discrimination, then they showed their hypocrisy. Then they flip-flopped to the other side. But you know, Hillary Clinton told us this was coming. You may remember several weeks ago, a few months ago, she told those of us, she said this in New York, those of us that are pro-life. She said we need to have our religious beliefs, our religious views changed. Well, I don't know about you, but my religious beliefs aren't between me and Hillary Clinton. My religious beliefs are between me and God Almighty, and I'm not changing them just because I am. The left is trying to take God out of the public square. They're trying to create a more secular country our founding fathers never intended, our parents would never recognize, a country I don't want my children or your children to recognize. Founding fathers knew this conflict was coming, and that's why they put our right to religious freedom in the First Amendment to the Constitution. Look, when the left says you've got the right to freedom of religious expression, all they mean is a couple of hours a week in church. That's not religious freedom. Religious freedom is to be able to live your life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, according to our sincerely held religious beliefs. Let me put this very simply, and I'll say it slowly so that even Hillary Clinton can understand. The United States of America did not create religious liberty. Religious liberty created the United States of America. Different idea for 2016. Let's try something just completely different. For once, why don't we as Republicans, why don't we embrace and endorse our own principles? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you've heard Jeb Bush say we've got to be willing to lose the primary in order to win the general election. I disagree with that. That is the establishment. Let me translate that in plain English for you. That is the establishment saying to conservatives, hide your beliefs. Try to get the left and the media to like us. Folks, that doesn't work. If we try that again, we will lose again, and we will deserve to lose again. America does not need us to be a second liberal party. They do not need us to be cheaper versions of the Democratic Party. We need a true conservative alternative. We need to elect somebody who will say and do the things you're not supposed to be able to do and say, and take on the establishment in both parties. I'll tell you this, as your commander-in-chief, I will get 4 things done. First, we're not passing a comprehensive bill, we're not granting amnesty, but we will finally secure our border once and for all. We don't need a 1,000-page bill to do that. The only reason you need a 1,000-page bill is to stack it up there for the border wall. That's the only reason you need 1,000 pages. But we're also going to put an end to these sanctuary cities. It's not enough just to defund them. I see Congress is trying to do that. I propose this. It's called my Partners in Crime Act. Let's hold those mayors, those councilmen, let's hold them responsible. Let's say we are going to charge you criminally as accessories to the crimes committed by the folks you allow to stay here who shouldn't be here in the first place. If you want to apply federal law, you should pay the price and create civil liability. So the victims of those crimes can also sue those officials. Let's put an end to sanctuary cities in America. Let's go Secondly, I will repeal and replace every bit of Obamacare, and I'm the only thing that I will shrink the size of our federal government and grow the private sector so our children can join the middle class once again. The difference between us and them, we measure prosperity in the real world, they measure prosperity in the government world. And folks, it's either or. We better shrink the size of this federal government before it overwhelms us and takes over our lives completely. And the reality is, I told you all the things we did in Louisiana. I'll tell you what my critics would say. They would tell you, well, under Governor Jindal, they're always cutting government. There's never enough money for state government. I'm here to tell you, that is absolutely right. Guilty as charged. 7 of the 10 fastest growing counties during these economic times have been in the D.C. area. That's not sustainable. That's not realistic. We've got to grow the real world. Fourth and finally, I will stop the hollowing out of our military. I will stand with our friends like Israel and stop Iran from becoming a nuclear power. War on trans fats and a truce with Iran. How does this make sense? We've got a president who doesn't have the moral clarity and honesty to tell us what we need to hear. He refuses to say the words radical Islamic terrorism. Oh, he's more than happy to criticize America. He's more than happy to apologize for America. More than happy to warn us about medieval Christians in the Crusades and criticize Christianity. And yet, where's our president in telling the Muslim leaders that Islam has a problem? That problem is radicalism. Muslim leaders must do more than denounce generic acts of violence. They must condemn individual terrorists by name. Say these terrorist tools are not martyrs. They're not going to enjoy a reward in the afterlife. They're going straight to hell where they belong. And then secondly, those same religious leaders, those same Muslim clerics and leaders need to embrace the same freedoms for others they want for themselves. Now, we had a president who went to the Pentagon the same week they announced they were cutting 40,000 troops from the Army. Goes to the Pentagon and says, well, we're not going to win this conflict with guns. So this is a generational conflict. We're going to have to change hearts and minds. Now, I'm so glad that Generals Eisenhower and Patton didn't have that attitude in World War II. The French would be speaking German today if we thought that was propaganda. I've got a message for the president. There are times in war you absolutely need guns, so you can hunt down and kill these murdering, evil terrorists before they get a chance to kill us. We must hunt them down and kill them. The hour is late for America. If we don't take action now, there may be a day we will all wake up and things will feel fine and feel normal. But if we don't take action now, that may be the day that America goes over the cliff. Where this country, the greatest country in the history of the world, goes so far that it will be impossible to come back. Now, the reality is if we re-elect President Obama, now let's be honest, electing Hillary Clinton is re-electing President Obama. If we re-elect President Obama, this country is done. The greatest country in the history of the world, no longer able to renew and rejuvenate ourselves. We will be the next Greece, but nobody will be able to rescue us. I'm here to ask you, how many of you believe like I do? If we re-elect President Obama, if we elect Hillary Clinton, we are done as a country. Well, if you've raised your hand, this campaign is for you. Because I'm not asking folks to join simply a campaign. I'm asking them to join a cause. I'm asking folks to believe again. Believe in America. You know, as a youngster, I was taught by my dad that Americans could do anything. I believed him then, and I believe him now. And I think in your heart you believe that as well. I think you've been frustrated for 7 long years by President Obama. And you want to believe in America. And you know our best days are ahead of us. You know that America can and will dominate the center. You remember that Ronald Reagan described us as that shining city on a hill. But you also remember he told us it was not inevitable. That every generation has to choose for itself to renew those principles of freedom. Previous generations have shed blood and treasure to give us the freedom and the opportunities we have today. This is our time to choose. This is our time to make a difference, to get our country back. Winston Churchill said, you can count on the Americans to do the right thing after they've exhausted every alternative. After 7 years of President Obama, we have exhausted every alternative. But this is still the greatest country in the history of the world. What the Founding Fathers got right was the genius of America is not in our government. The genius of America is they created a limited government to secure but not create our God-given rights. It's that freedom that allows entrepreneurs to create something from nothing. That allows moms and dads everywhere to raise their children according to their values. That's what this election is about. I'm asking you to join our cause. I'm asking you to believe again, believe in America. Let's go to work. Let's take our country back. Let's leave the American dream for our children and grandchildren. Go to bobbyjindal.com. Join us in this fight. Let's get off the path to socialism. God bless y'all. Thank y'all very much. Questions? I don't know if you have anything I'll talk about. I'd love to hear from y'all. Yes, sir.
I would like to talk about this, not only this deficit, but our spending in general. We start in 2008 or 2009 and spend $1 trillion more a year. Why can't we start today and spend $1 trillion less? Why do we have to wait 5 years, as Dr. Rand Paul said, or 10 years, as Paul Ryan said, to balance the budget?
No, you're exactly right. So the question for everybody, if you couldn't hear it, was why do we have to wait so long to shrink the budget, to balance the budget? They grew it so much in 2008, 2009. They grew it by $1 trillion. Why not be able to shrink it sooner rather than have to wait? Even Republicans are saying you have to wait. That's exactly right. Look, D.C. is the only place in America where if an agency spends $100 today, and they ask for $110 tomorrow, you give them $105, they'll claim they were cut. It's the only place in America, if they don't get what they want, they say they were cut. As opposed to saying, no, you actually grew. We can't just slow the growth rate. We've got to shrink the size of government. How do we do that? 3 things. One, it's going to take structural change. Look, it's not enough to send just a bunch of Republicans. We've tried that. When the Republicans are there, they spend more money than they have. When the Democrats are there, they spend even more money than they don't have. In Louisiana, we've got a Balanced Budget Act in our Constitution. It takes a supermajority vote before they can raise taxes, a supermajority vote before they can grow government faster than the private sector. We've got to do that in D.C. as well. You know, I would describe them as spending money like drunken sailors, but it gives drunken sailors a bad name. You know? And so it's not enough just to send a few more Republicans. You've got to change the structures so they can't spend money. Right now, they just keep printing money and kicking the can down the road, but it's not sustainable. There are a bunch of math numbers. The second thing we've got to do, we've got to shrink government. Well, how do you do that? Government is doing all kinds of things it shouldn't be doing today. The Constitution tells the government it's supposed to defend us. But instead of doing that, they're hollowing out the military. They're not securing the borders. Instead, we've got the Federal Department of Education micromanaging your children's school lunch, pushing Common Core. We've got the EPA in your backyards. We need to say to these agencies, if we don't tell you explicitly you can do this, you're not allowed to do this. We've got unelected bureaucrats going crazy, creating regulations where the law is not ever intended to let them do that. The Federal Department of Education spends billions of dollars on teacher quality programs. No evidence it actually improves teacher quality. Get rid of this funding or block grant it to states. Title I. Make that money either portable and divisible so it follows the student or block grant it to states. There should never be a federal Secretary of Education that can say to states, if you want your money back, your own money back, you're going to have to adopt Common Core or whatever we want you to teach in your classrooms. Take that power away from DC. Take that power away from the EPA. Take that power away from the IRS, a lower, flatter tax code, so they can't go after conservative groups. Alito asked the Solicitor General, if we rule the way you want in marriage, doesn't that create issues for religious and other higher educational institutions? They said maybe. They didn't say no, they said maybe. And so we've got to shrink and reduce the numbers of things the federal government is doing. And we have to be honest. Look, Social Security and Medicare are going to go broke by 2030 if we don't do something. Now, the Democrats are more than fine with just letting it either go broke or raising taxes. We need them to be honest with us. And the sooner we adopt changes, the more gradual and gentler they can be. The third thing we got to do. We have to grow the private sector economy. We do have to cut, but the reality is we can't get used to 2% growth, but that is the new normal we're doing. And I worry because the way you boil a frog, you ever heard that old joke, you just turn it up 1 degree at a time? So he doesn't realize what you're doing? Well, I worry that could become the new normal in America. We need energy independence. We could create millions of good-paying manufacturing jobs with affordable energy in this country. We got a president who doesn't believe in an all-of-the-above strategy. If he did, he would build the Keystone Pipeline. He'd get out of the way of energy production here at home instead of sending our dollars overseas. And I truly mean all of the above. We would have that lower, flatter tax code without all the special interest carve-outs. We can't have that highest tax rate in the developed world. We'd have a rule that if the regulations cost money to the economy, Congress has to vote on it. So they don't get to hurt the economy just by these bureaucrats behind closed doors. We'd have an independent cost-benefit analysis before they're allowed to do those things. We'd have real health care reform that lowers premiums instead of these taxes and mandates out of D.C. We've got to get real growth back in our economy, but you're exactly right. We've got to have a sense of urgency. I'm not exaggerating. When I say we're going to be the next Greece, look, the EU can bail out Greece, and nobody can bail out America. President Obama brags that the annual debt this year is now down to under $500 billion. As if that's what we're thinking about. But what he doesn't tell you is that's based on artificially low interest rates. Once we get to anywhere near normal interest rates, that debt goes through the ceiling. And let's just forget the math. Let me just put it in simple terms. There is not a parent here today who would go into your children's bedroom, break open their piggy banks, and steal their money to go buy yourself a pizza. I know the kids started clapping back. But that's exactly what we're doing by spending money we don't have. I want to share with you something the president said last week. This was the president. It's not me. This is the president defending his bad Iran deal. He says, well, look, America alone can't put effective sanctions on Iran. That's not true, but he says that. And he said that we can't get countries like China to help us because we need them to buy our debt. President Obama is admitting his failure to control government spending has weakened America on the world stage. Now, we knew this guy had an ego. We knew he was narcissistic, but then he goes and compares himself to Ronald Reagan. Is he kidding me? Reagan was negotiating for peace through strength. Reagan was trying to weaken the Soviet Union, not strengthen Iran, and Reagan understood verification. Now we're not even getting any time anywhere inspection. So I'm sorry to go on so long, but you're exactly right. We've got to shrink the size of that government starting today. We've got to balance that budget. And I'm not talking about slowly, growing it more slowly. I'm talking about actually spending less than what they used to spend. And if we don't get used to that, our future, socialism has never worked anywhere else. I don't know why we think it would work here all of a sudden. I don't know why we think we'd be the one country where it would actually work. So you're exactly right. Yes, sir. The question was, the penny plan work? Why would that plan work immediately? I do like the premise that we can shrink government spending. I'll tell you one concern I've got with the penny plan. And it's a small one, but I do think it's trying to get us in the right direction, is there are areas I actually think we need to spend more. And defense is one of those. I worry that under this president, we're going to have fewer troops than any time before World War II. Fewer and older ships and planes at a time when China is building a blue water navy, Russia's modernizing their nuclear arsenal, Iran wants some nuclear capability. So I agree that I like the idea behind the penny plan. Look, across the board, we need to be able to shrink. I think that's right. But I think we've also got, I think some areas are going to cut more than a penny. And I think there are other areas like defense where it does make sense to invest a little bit more. Right? Not a little bit more. I think we need to get back closer. Historically, we used to spend about 4% of our GDP on defense. I'm not saying get there overnight. I think we need to do procurement reform and downsize some of the civilian contractors in the ways. But I never want our military in a fair fight. As your commander-in-chief, well, look, I think if you do it strategically, that idea of shrinking makes sense. But I want our military to be able to dominate any potential conflict. So yeah, I think as long as you're willing to say, look, we'll adjust it based on the need. But I think the idea that, yes, we can all do, and we did that in state government. We did hiring freezes and we did cuts, and we said, everybody can be a little more efficient. I bet you there's not a family here who hasn't had to tighten their belt during this recession. There's not a small business here that hasn't had to do more with less. Government's the only people that are immune to that. The other thing, this is just a personal view, but wouldn't it be nice if some of these bureaucrats actually lost their jobs, lost their benefits, and went to jail when they keep violating our rights?
My biggest concern is that we elected Republican Congress promised with their names. Compromise is not surrender. John Boehner and Mitch McConnell are workers. They're not I'm sure they eat the same restaurants as Harry Reid and belong to the same club. I want somebody in office who's not afraid to say, no, I'm not part of the game. I will not play the game. You will work for me. I'm the head of this party. And take back control, because one branch of this government can't overrule the other two. We need somebody with the courage to tell John Boehner and Mitch McConnell and all the other rhinos, I hate that word, but they aren't in charge anymore. And just because they find the Tea Party, for example, threatening their power, when we turned on those people, all those people had good ideas. I want somebody to convince me that they're going to deliver and not be part of the good old boys club. Like every damn time I get promised that there's changes coming, and all of a sudden, wagon circle, we're in now, things are going to be good. Trust us. And nothing changes.
No, I think that's exactly right. I think that's right. So I think everybody heard the question, but basically, we were promised change. We didn't get change. What I said about that election was, I hope that election was more than just getting a nicer office for Mitch McConnell. Because if that's all that election was about, let's give the office back. I mean, you think about this. President Obama had the House and Senate for 2 years. He got Obamacare and $1 trillion stimulus plan.
They're still voting for it. It's not any different. They're voting for it. Compromise, but they need surrender.
No, that's right. But my point is, what do Republicans get done when we have control? And I think the way we've got to fix this is you've got now a permanent governing political class in D.C. in both parties. That's not what the Founding Fathers intended. They didn't intend people to go up there and earn a 6-figure salary and then become 7-figure lobbyists when they were done being in Congress. This was supposed to be a part-time job. This was supposed to be a job where they left their farms, left their businesses at a sacrifice to serve us. Think how different it would be if they actually had to live under the same rules they passed for the rest of us. They loved Obamacare until their exception was taken away. Then all of a sudden they didn't like it as much anymore. I think to break up, you're right. We need a leader that says, I don't care if I don't get invited to the cocktail parties. I don't care if I'm politically incorrect. I don't care if the Washington Post dislikes me. Actually, if you're a Republican and the Washington Post likes you, something's wrong. You need to figure out whether you're wrong. But I think we need term limits. I think we need a part-time Congress. I think we need to stop them from being lobbyists. In Louisiana, we pay our legislators a per diem. I think we should pay them a per diem, but pay them a per diem for every day they stay out of D.C. rather than every day they go to D.C. But I think you're exactly, let me show you why I think that happened, because you're exactly right. I don't disagree with what you said. You're exactly right, but this is why I think that happened. I was in Congress for 3 years. I like to say I served 2 terms. It felt like a sentence. I actually felt like I was sentenced to 2 terms. Let me show you 3 things that happen when you become a member of Congress. Well, before you get these 3 things, there are 3 items they give you. Before that happens, the most amazing thing happens when you get elected to Congress. Your jokes get funnier. You get smarter. You get better looking. It's amazing what happens. What do I mean by that? I had an opponent that actually endorsed, a guy that endorsed my opponent, criticized me on TV, and after I won my election, he came to see me. He said, Bobby, I was secretly for you on the very first day. I said, I don't understand politics. I said, I want you to be secretly for the other guy, but you can be for me. But my point is, nobody ever tells these members of Congress that the emperor's got no claws. They get three things. One, when you get elected, you get a license plate. And if you're a House member, it says H and it has a number. There are 435 members. It goes from 1 to 435. The lower the number, the more senior you are. The higher the number, the more junior. So already they're telling you the longer you're here, the more important you are. My number was also in the 400s. So you put this in your dashboard. I remember one day I was there early for a meeting in the Rayburn House office building. My office wasn't there, so I was driving around looking for a parking spot. Now, if you've ever been to D.C., you know it's hard to find parking. Everything's marked reserved, or painted no parking. But it's early in the morning. I'm circling and surfing. Finally, this Capitol police officer comes out and goes, "What are you doing?" I must have looked like an idiot driving past all these empty parking spots. I said, "Well, it says no parking." And he looks at me and goes, looks at my license plate and goes, "That doesn't mean for you." He says, "You can park wherever you want." And then I realized, I bet you if I parked my car on the Capitol lawn, it'd probably still be there today. It probably never sold. So the first thing they teach you is those parking signs, those parking rules don't apply to you. The second thing, they give you a member's card. And that allows you to skip security and go to the front of the line. You don't have to walk through security like your constituents and everybody else does. Now, the third thing they give you, and this is probably the most important, they give you your voting card. It's about the size of a credit card, and only you are allowed to vote your machine. Nobody else is allowed to go vote for you. And every lobbyist that wants to come see you wants you to vote the way they want you to vote. Now, I always would tell my friends, my colleagues up there, I'd say, now, you should try this. The next time somebody comes to lobby you, I'd say, make up the dumbest thing you could ever think of. Because you think about it, members of Congress are surrounded by staff they hire and fire. They set their salaries. There's no civil service protection. So your staff is all dependent on you for their jobs and their salaries. Lobbyists want your vote. So I said, say the dumbest thing. Just make something up. Tell them tomorrow, the next group that comes to see you, tell them the sun rose in the west today. And see what happens. Because I bet you 9 out of 10 times they won't even correct you. They'll try to find a way to agree. Congressman, that's brilliant. I thought something was going on with the sun today. It looked like it. And so over time, they lose touch with reality. It is a dangerous thing to have a separate, permanent, governing ruling class. You're exactly right. The Founding Fathers never intended that.
Do you support term limits?
Absolutely. We need to put term limits in the Constitution, and we need to, but not just term limits, part-time limits. Make them work in the private sector, and term limits where they can't become lobbyists. I've always said, look, the Republican Party can't be the party of big government. But folks, we can't be the party of big business either. So many of the things you talked about, like whether it's amnesty or Common Core, that's big business pushing for their interests. We need to be conservatives. We need to say that we trust the American people to make up their own decisions, live their own life. But you're right, I'm very frustrated. I want us to fight and win. But I at least want us to fight. What makes me mad is we don't even fight. Why in the world wouldn't the party stand up today and say, we're not going to confirm any of this president's judges, at least until he starts obeying the Constitution and the laws? They promised us, given the majority, they would defund amnesty and Obamacare. I remember those ads very well. There were no fine print. They didn't say maybe or some of it. They said, we will stop Obamacare if we have the majority. We will stop amnesty. And they haven't done either. I think this Planned Parenthood fight's very telling. Let's see what they do. If the Republican Party, we can't win on this. I'm a lifelong Republican. What's the point of a Republican Party that can't defend innocent human life? Yes.
Can I say Louisiana kind of like a possible Washington, and it's a beautiful state. It's just as bad. The corruption, Trumpism, belong to this is the way we've always done it. It's the way we've always done it. And you have not done that. So what did you do? Because you must have dealt with Republicans who wanted the status quo, Democrats who hated you, lobbyists who were against you, how did you do this?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. Two very specific things. So one, Louisiana is a fiscally liberal state. We're a populous state. We've been told all of our lives, populace in Louisiana want everything for free and then complain we pay too much for it. In Louisiana, the law has taught us, don't tax you, don't tax me, tax the guy behind the tree. Our state government's always been bigger than other state governments in the South. When I was running for office, we just come out of Katrina. And people didn't know whether we could rebuild the state. They didn't know what was going to happen. And this is what I told them. This is the one thing I put in every speech, every talk I gave to every group. And I went to every parish, just like I'm going to every county here. And I said this, because in my state, Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1. So we had to get a lot of Democrats and independents to vote for us, folks that never voted Republican. And we won 2 landslide elections. This is what I said in every place. I said, look, for 25 years in a row, our kids have left the state faster than we leave. What that really means is if you're a parent, chances are you're not going to get to see your grandchildren grow up. Chances are that everybody in Louisiana knows somebody, some loved one, that's no longer living there. I don't care what your politics are, that stinks. As my mom says, if she could have had grandchildren without children, I wouldn't be here today. That's pretty personal. You don't get to see your grandchildren play sports. You only see them at Christmas. That really, really hurts. And so what I said to the folks across my state was, look, I'm not going to be the most entertaining politician. We have a history of politicians that entertain us in Louisiana. When I was sworn in, I had a predecessor in federal prison. I had 3 insurance commissioners in a row go to federal prison, 4 president of the Senate in federal prison. I had a congressman who was called with $90,000 in his freezer on his way to federal. I mean, I keep going on and on. You get the point. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I said, folks, for 25 years, we keep doing the same thing and we keep losing our kids. Why not try something different? And I was very honest with people. I said, I'm not raising taxes. I'm cutting the size of the government, but I will bring jobs into our state. The best compliment actually came from an old-line Democrat my first term. He thought he was criticizing. He was giving an interview with a reporter. And he said, well, this governor, he is just as stubborn as a mule when it comes to taxes. He won't raise any tax for any reason. I called him up and said, I'm going to put that in all my campaign literature, by the way. But his point was, my first year, I lined out and vetoed more than my predecessors put together. Because they tested me. I had a Democratic House and Senate my first term. But once they knew I was serious, they stopped trying. They said, okay, look, he's not going to raise that. What's the point of hitting our head against that wall? To the previous right, if we have principled leadership in D.C., we can win these fights. But the best compliment I ever get from voters in Louisiana is they'll come up to me, and a lot of them will tell me, look, I'm not as conservative as you are. I don't agree with everything you've done. But they say, you did what you promised us. You brought our kids back. You brought jobs to our state. You did what you said you were going to do. The second thing we did. So I got elected with overwhelming margins, and I use my political capital. It's easy to be a popular politician. You just go and cut ribbons and kiss babies. You don't do anything. My very first year, my first special session, we took on ethics reform. We were ranked in the bottom 5 by the Better Government Association and the Center for Public Integrity. Today, we are ranked number 1 for legislative disclosure in the top 5 on that same Better Government Association's Integrity Index. They didn't like it. There are a lot of lobbyists and politicians that squeal, and I went directly to the people. And I said, you either have politicians that work for us or for themselves. I want them working for us. Now, they didn't like it, but we got those laws changed. My second term, my very first session, we did statewide school choice. The teacher unions protested against me so often, I'd tell my kids, those are parades for daddy. That's why they had daddy's picture on those posters out there. But my point is that we can do that. Reagan had a Democratic Congress for most of his term. And he cut taxes and won the Cold War and invested in the military. He did it because he went to the American people and he stood on principle. People knew Reagan wasn't going to fold. They knew that he wasn't going to give up without a fight. And I think that we can do the same thing in D.C. And you're right, it's not just Democrats. You got to fight Republicans as well. My second term, for the first time in our state's history, we got a Republican majority in the House and the Senate. But that doesn't mean they're all committed to smaller government. I had to fight sometimes Republicans against Medicaid change or against raising taxes. We need principled leadership. And if you're looking for somebody who will go along to get along, go vote for somebody else. If you're looking for somebody to manage the slow decline of this country, I'm not your guy. But if you want somebody who's going to fight for you and has already fought for our principles, then I'm asking you to join our cause. Because it's going to take that kind of tenacity. And again, it's a backhand compliment to Obama and Reid, but at least they fight for what they believe in.
Yeah, I really support your idea of cutting the budget. The other part of that is the elephant in the room that we all know about, and Social Security.
Sure.
And I'm tired of politicians saying something about the cut the budget between Social Security, Medicare, and interest. It's 2/3 of the budget. It's time that politicians are specific about how they're going to handle this problem. If we don't, it's just not talk.
No, that's exactly right. So the question was on entitlement reforms and Social Security in particular. So I actually was the executive director of the commission in the 90s that came up with a plan for premium-supported Medicare, to give you an example. We came up with a plan that would save taxpayers and beneficiaries billions of dollars. We came within a vote of getting that done. And Bill Clinton, he was for it before he was against it. Wall Street Journal wrote an editorial, and I don't know, I wasn't in the room. They said he flip-flopped on it because of the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal. House Democrats voted with him and told him, look, you can't vote for Medicare reform. That was after welfare reform. Everybody thought that was going to be the next big thing. We spent a year coming with a bipartisan plan. Some of the Senate Democrats, House Republicans, Senate Republicans, all endorsed. This was no radical idea. DLC supported it, Mayo Clinic, the Wall Street Journal. This was a mainstream idea. Think how much better off we would have been in the 90s if we had done this, instead of waiting till today. Because you're exactly right. Everybody knows we've got to do these changes. And the longer we wait, the harder they become. The sooner we do them, the sooner you can phase in and grandfather in people, the more gradually you can make changes. The longer we wait, look, if we wait till 2030 when both trust funds are broke, it gets to be a lot harder to make those changes. We're going to come out with detailed ideas on both entitlements and taxes, but we already, like I said, I literally spent a year of my life in the 90s as the executive director on the Bipartisan Commission on the Future of Medicare. You're exactly right. We do need to cut discretionary spending. There is money wasted there, and because it lets the government get intrude into our lives. But we've got to reform entitlements. And we've got to reform those programs, otherwise we won't be able to balance out.
Yes, we have time for one more.
Our country leads the opposite by race. Everybody knows it. So what can you do? I mean, what can the president do to actually bring everybody back together? Embrace with the stupid barrier.
That's a great.
Political correctness track and everything else is ridiculous.
That's a great question. So this president had such an opportunity to bring our country together, and yet he's been the divider in chief. Every president at some point has said, "I'm going to be president for everybody, not just my party, not just the people who voted for me." He hasn't done that. He hasn't made that clear. And one of the things the president can do is he does have the power of the bully pulpit. He does have that power. What I worry about is, and the reason I think this election is so important, in 4 more years of these policies, we'll have a generation of Americans who won't even remember the country you and I are trying to get back to. And I worry 4 more years of this right now. You talk about political correctness. So at the University of New Hampshire, they put out a guidebook saying we should no longer use the word America, because that's politically incorrect. No longer use the word rich. That's politically incorrect. There was a bill in Congress saying the federal government shouldn't use the terms husband and wife. That's politically incorrect. When I was in college, that was a long time ago, the academics were trying to teach us we're not a melting pot. They said we're a salad bowl. Somehow it is culturally arrogant to say that, oh, folks that want to come here should try to become Americans. That's ridiculous. What a president can do is first tell us all enough of the victimhood. That's not America's history. This is the first president, folks, do you realize this is the first president who does not believe in American exceptionalism? You know, in 2012, I went around campaigning against President Obama, saying he was the worst president since Jimmy Carter. After he won his re-election, I went to D.C. and I did this very publicly, I apologized, saying I'd been disrespectful to the president. I apologized to Jimmy Carter for insulting him. Jimmy Carter believed in American exceptionalism. He was just incompetent. This president doesn't believe. What kind of president? I grew up in the Reagan years. Those were my formative years. You think about how he, by just force of policy and character and integrity, took us from the dark days of the late 70s. Stagflation, long lines at the gas stations, Iranians taking hostages in the American embassy. You know, the Soviets, yeah, that's right, they still have American hostages under this president. The Soviets in Afghanistan. This idea that we couldn't win the Cold War, he got us to believe again. And we were proud to be Americans. It was morning in America again. It made you proud that we were this great country. How can a president unify us and make us proud to be Americans if he doesn't believe in American exceptionalism? If his whole narrative is all about we're all victims and we all need help from the government, we all need to be dependent. That's nonsense. Now, I told you about how my dad paid for a monthly installment. There was another hospital down the road where he could have gone, a charity hospital, a state-run hospital. The delivery would have been completely free. Wouldn't have had to pay a penny. When I was old enough, I asked my dad why he didn't go there. And I love his answer. He said, that hospital wasn't for me. That hospital was for people who really needed it. My dad, he'd only been in this country 6 months, didn't own a car, didn't own a house, yet he knew, I'm going to pay for my childhood. He was happy there was a place for people that really needed that help. We've got to get back to that in America. This election is about a lot of things. It is about entitlements. It is about tax rates. It is about spending. But it is most fundamentally about the culture of America. And what I worry about is not just the division and the racial divides, but it's also this culture of dependence and victimhood. And the president's encouraged that. And that's what we've got to fight so hard to get back. Because, you can undo tax rates and regulations. Culture's a lot harder to change. And if you want to see our future, you look at yours. And what I worry about, again, 4 more years, we all remember what we're fighting for. You would have a generation of Americans who will only recognize America from the history books. I don't want to see that happen. I don't want our kids, look, our kids will look back on this day and have one of 2 recollections. They'll either look back and say, thank God, my parents did the hard work, rolled up their sleeves, and saved this country. Or they're going to look back and say, why in the world didn't they do it as we done? America can't be beat externally. There's no enemy outside of us that can beat us. But we can be beat internally. And that is what I worry about what's happening to our country. I can't think of a better last question. I know folks have a lot of hands. Folks didn't get to ask all their questions. I'll stay right here. Anybody wants to come and talk or ask a question, I will stick around until the last person leaves. So, folks, if you want to come up and ask a question or get a picture taken or whatever y'all want, I'll be here. Let me close with this final thought. Our best days are still ahead of us. This is still the greatest country in the history of the world. I wouldn't trade places with anybody in the world. But it is now up to us to make sure it remains that way. Please join our cause. Again, talk to a volunteer or go to bobbyjindal.com. We can, we must, we will get our country back. God bless y'all. Thank you.